Namaste and welcome. It's Rishi here from meditatewithrishi.com, and today we're going to be speaking about the fifth Niyama from Patanjali's 8 limbs of yoga. And the fifth Niyam is Ishvara Pranidhana. Okay, so let's get into it. What does Ishvara Pranidhana mean? Now, it's very commonly known as surrender to God. Okay, so let's explore this a bit further. Now, in yoga, God is not the creator God that is found in many religions. Okay, so the concept of God or Ishvara is not that there is a being, somewhere sitting up in the clouds and constructing, every little human and animal and what's going to happen. No, that's not the concept of God. Okay, God or Ishvara in yoga is essentially a spiritual being, a Purusha, who has always existed, timeless, and is non-physical in nature. And the reality is that all of us have a spark of this Purusha within us, okay? And through the practice of yoga, the aim of yoga is to remove the modifications of the mind, the mental chatter, the mental clutter. You've heard me say this before. So when the mind is completely still, like a lake, you can see what resides within. And that is when you can touch your true essence. And that's when you realize that this spark that we speak about, that you thought was an individual unit within you, is actually everywhere. It is within everything, essentially. And this is when realization dawns, and this is what is known as oneness, which I'm sure you've heard. Okay, so that's the idea, essentially. Now, what I want to speak about is, this is my opinion, by the way. So this is my personal opinion. Obviously, I've not attained realization. But what I believe from my experience is that it doesn't matter whether your view is dual or non-dual. Okay, so let's say that you have a dual view, that there is God and there is us. So there is a creator and then the created, essentially. And you look at God as a superior being to yourself, and that is your relationship, essentially. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it, the dualistic approach. The other approach is non-dual. So there's not two. It's not God and me. It's either one, right? So everything is one. Within me is divinity. I am divinity. Okay, this is the teaching of the Vedanta, essentially. Or you have a view that there are infinite manifestations. So everything in the world is a manifestation of that same divine principle, essentially, right? So based on your upbringing, the tradition you come from, your religion, so many different things, you may have a certain view. Your view may change over time, but it doesn't matter. Ultimately, in yoga, it doesn't matter. You see, yoga is a very it is a science, right? The science of self-realization. And what we are speaking about, the 8 limbs of yoga, right? These steps, essentially, anybody who follows them, and they will attain the main goal, which is realization. Okay, now here's the thing. Before you attain that, before realization, there are all these different philosophies and beliefs and everything that we as humans have come up with, right? But after realization, none of that matters, because it is all oneness. That is when you realize that all is one, essentially, right? So ultimately, it doesn't matter whatever you believe in. At the other side of it, everything is one. So all we must do is to practice. All we must do is to practice, essentially. So the real meaning of Ishvara Pranidhana means, Ishvara means that ultimate principle, God, as we call it, right? And Pranidhana is to fix your attention upon that at all times. So not just when you are meditating, not just when you're praying, meditating, or doing your pranayam, right? At all times, our attention must be fixed upon that. So this is a way of spiritualizing your life, right? So if you are doing some work, you do that work selflessly as an offering to the divine. This is one of the key lessons from the Bhagavad Gita, okay? Or let's say you are speaking to somebody, right? You're interacting with somebody. You see the divine, in that person. Namaste means I bow to the divinity within you, right? And when we do it like this, then you really realize that everything is divine. What the same thing that is in you is in everyone else, and then selfishness kind of goes out the window, and life becomes just easier, more fun, more playful, more kind, essentially. And this is the true yoga, essentially, because there is no way that we are going to attain realization of oneness if we keep seeing ourselves as separate from everyone else, right? That's not going to happen. So this doesn't need to be complicated, right? The point is to keep your attention on divinity at all times, always, through your practice and also just in life in general, okay? So this is my take on Ishvara Pranidhana. So that is it. Thank you for listening. Namaste.